We'll meet again, we know where, we know when, at 7 by the gasworks wall. In the rain or in the sun, we'll have loads of good fun when we meet by the gasworks wall. Good evening. Jonathan Umtwood here on Cork Nostalgia Radio with another live program in the series, Yesterday's Stars, Where Are They Today? My guest this evening is 98-year-old Ignatius Patrick Freely, a founder member of the very popular Cork singing group of yesteryear, the Atlantic Ponders. Good evening, Mr. Freely. IP. Pardon? IP? Call me IP. That's what everyone calls me. Oh, I see. Well, IP, you were a big name in the 1930s with the Atlantic Ponders. How did the group get that name? Well, you see, we all came from around Blackrock, and the Atlantic Pond is down there just after Marina, like. So we thought we'd take our name from it, and so the Atlantic Ponders was born. Interesting. So you didn't have to ponder much about your name. What? You didn't? Oh, never mind. Now, you've brought along some of the songs that made you famous back in the day. I have. So what would you like to begin with? Oh. Well, I suppose a pint and a small one wouldn't go astray. No, I mean, what's your first song? Oh, I get you. I'd like to start with our version of the great Cork anthem, The Banks of My Own Lovely Lee. The song that brings a tear to the eye of any Cork person, and I gather it's an environmental version of the song. That's right. We were before our time. There was an awful smell after the river in them days. There was no great sanitation. So if you went to the Jackson, one of the public toilets on the quay, and you ran out fast enough, you could see what you just... Quite. Very interesting. Now, we should tell our listeners there's a fair amount of surface noise from the old 78 RPM records, and our engineers couldn't get rid of it all. Anyhow, here we go. Before its time, indeed, the environmentalist version of The Banks of My Own Lovely Lee from 1933. Oh, oft do my thoughts at pollution take fright when I stand and gaze down at the Lee, and I watch all the turds and the urine unite on their passage through Cork to the sea. Then I thinks of the fish that will land on my plate, and the tea made from recycled water. You may laugh at this song, but just think of the pong that wafts at you out of the lee. It's a sign of disease that will kill by degrees all the life on my own lovely Lee. Then the maid with her lover will be quite depressed when no longer by tall grass they're blessed. And the trees all are stunted, no leaves will they bear, and there's nowhere to shade from the sun. Then your children will ask you how you had your fun, as they wonder what leaves on trees looks like. You may laugh at this song, but just think of the pong that wafts at you out of the lake. 'Tis a sign of disease that will kill by degrees all the life on my own lovely Lee. Lovely, lovely. Mind you, I couldn't help noticing that you were singing it on your own. I was. So, where were the other members of the group? Well, you see, we were late arriving at the studio on account of it was raining, and I had a puncture. Well, it was the bike had the puncture, not me, like. And the other lads had to go back to work, and the engineer had another group coming in, so it was all or nothing, do you know what I mean? So I had to sing it on my own. In fact, because of the way our timetables was, even though we was a group, we never actually got to sing together. We was a group, but we was always singing solo.
My, those were different times, IP.
Tibble by tibble.
Now, one of the Atlantic ponders was an Englishman.
That's right. That was Bert Ogden. He got caught up in the burning of Cork, and 2 months later he got married to the daughter of the family that saved him from the IRA and the Black and Tans united the fire.
Fascinating. But he was English. Why would he be in danger from the Black and Tans?
He was kind of odd. He identified with the Irish cause. He taught himself Irish and took to wearing a kilt. So the Irish didn't trust him because he sounded English, and the English didn't trust him because they thought he was an Irishman pretending to be an Englishman.
Dear me, what a story! But the interesting thing is that he loved that most famous of all fictional detectives.
He did, boy. He loved him. He couldn't get enough of Sherlock Holmes.
Sherlock Holmes. And he had a trilogy of Sherlock Holmes songs.
A what?
A trilogy.
No, he wrote 3 songs.
Yes, a trilogy.
Well, maybe he did have a trilogy, but all I know is it was just the 3 songs he wrote.
Tell us about the 3 songs.
Well, the first one is Dr. Watson singing about Sherlock Holmes.
Fascinating. Well, let's hear the voice of writer and singer Bert Ogden all the way from 1933. The mind of my friend Sherlock Holmes is restless, it constantly roams. It likes the sort of question that causes mental indigestion in everyday mortals like me. In the year 1893, he solved the curious puzzle of the dog's blood-stained muzzle. Though they'd worked day and night without cease, the case baffled the best of police. Having studied details of the crime, Holmes considered place and time, all the people who were present, from nobleman to simple peasant. He thought appearances deceptive, but the police were unreceptive. They shook their heads and wryly smiled. They thought his theories weird and wild. Irked by their contemptuous tone, Holmes decided to go it alone. With his violin under his chin, he pondered the fix they were in. He played and smoked for 7 long days. I could scarcely see him through the haze. At the end of that time it transpired, the case was bogged down and mired. The police were getting nowhere and tearing their collective hair. Holmes on violin improvising was thinking hard and analyzing. Pizzicato, staccato, his face red as tomato, inspired by music seductive. Holmes thought deep and deductive. He stopped playing me gavotte. Oh, once the answer he had got. I have it, he cried, the solution. Swift indeed came retribution. The murderer was not the dog. No, the hound was an innocent cog in a devious and evil plan concocted by a wicked man. Holmes helped the police to crack the case. How happy they were to save face. As the inspector was heaped with praise, I noted my friend's ironic gaze. Back home in London, safe and sound, Holmes broke a silence quite profound. I was surprised when he remarked, "At times even I was in the dark." Yes, the murder plan was brilliant, and the murderer resilient. He tried and failed, then tried once more.
Though he was evil to the core, one must admire his persistence, though it extinguished his existence. The marsh that claimed him for its own is nibbling now his skin and bone. A fearsome fate, Watson, don't you think, for a clever man who did not shrink from wicked thoughts and evil deeds, and now he rests among rank weeds. Silence descended once again as we ponder the fate of men who show contempt for moral laws. Nature punishes their fatal flaws. Gazing at the fire's cozy glow, my mind wandered to and fro. Holmes, I mused, was so effective. Could I hope to turn detective and not be always second fiddle while Holmes was solving some great riddle? How do you do it, Holmes? I cried. He looked at me and softly sighed, lit his pipe with one long taper, then scribbled on a piece of paper. I read the text and read again. The man was teasing with his pen. What was this riddle facing me? One word, before it letters three. 3 letters and one word stood there, and all I could do was blankly stare. I read till I could read no more. I hurled the paper on the floor and shouted out in great frustration, "Damn it, Holmes, damn and botheration! Your message makes no sense to me. What on earth is LMN3?"
Extraordinary. So what's the next one?
The next one is Sherlock Holmes singing about Dr. Watson.
Dr. Watson considers himself my friend, a delusion I have no wish to end. I rather like him, though I have to say it's in a patronizing sort of way. His mind, unlike mine, is quite pedestrian. A cart horse he'd be were he equestrian. Earnest, honest, plodding, and quite obtuse. As a detective, he's of little use. He insists on writing up my cases, as though I always hold king, queen, and aces. Seen through the doctor's rose-tinted glasses, I'm the terror of the criminal classes. Put on a pedestal by his fervent pen, I seem a constant threat to evil men. Such admiration smacks of adulation, and causes me no little irritation. Come, come, Watson, I told him vigorously, avoid drama, proceed more rigorously. My cases do not come to fruition through the lightning flash of intuition. My methods are cool, calm, and clinical. Admiration leaves me cold and cynical. I'm not the genius you make me out to be. I sift the evidence meticulously until what's left just has to be the truth, be it tobacco, ash, or broken tooth. Watson nods his head in apparent consent, and the mood between us is one of content. But still he writes those penny dreadful stories, cataloguing, he thinks, my mental glories. So why do I tolerate him, one may ask? Well, he can be trusted with a minor task.
requiring little speed of thought or deed, a man in short who follows but does not lead, one who, though devoid of critical rigor, knows when to draw his gun and pull the trigger, and when all is done, prepares and serves up tea to greater men like, for example, me. Yes, this Watson considers himself my friend, a delusion I have no wish to end. I use him, I confess, to sharpen my wits when trying to fit together the bits that, when assembled, begin to make sense and finally end up as evidence. I stop and stare, pen hovering in air. What I've written has laid my feelings bare. I no longer feel so condescending. I have to admit, by way of ending, that Watson and I would seem to be friends. With such a startling thought, my musing ends. Fascinating! What a contrast between the two songs. And what's the third song, IP? Oh, the third song is short and sweet. It's a song about Holmes and Watson from the point of view of the villainous criminal Professor Moriarty. And once again, it's the words and voice of Bert Ogden reaching us all the way from 1933.
Oft when on my couch I lie, in vengeful or impatient mood, I think of Mr. Sherlock Holmes, in words and images most rude. His mind, I know, is razor sharp, our swords have crossed much more than once, but what a sidekick he has got, a slavishly admiring dunce. I've pondered often on this fact, how do the two men coexist? Were I to live with one of them, 'twould drive me quickly round the twist. I put myself in Watson's place. Holmes' squeaky fiddle and cocaine, combined with patronizing tone, would certainly affect my brain. If I were Mr. Sherlock Holmes, I'd suffer such frustration from Watson's mediocre mind. I'd move to new accommodation. And yet they live in Baker Street, apparently in harmony, a fact I grudgingly respect, though how they do is beyond me. They do not know I'm still alive, and have a plan to bring them down. It cannot fail, and when they're dead, I'll rule the roost in London town.
Amazing stuff! After those songs, I'm sure there'd be renewed interest in Sherlock Holmes and his doings. His what? Sherlock Holmes, his doings. You can leave Sherlock Holmes's doings out of it. There was no doings in those days. Right. Well, moving rapidly on. After the war, you regrouped and started singing again. One of you went on holiday to France, and the result was a Cork song with a French connection. I believe it's a song about a policeman, a French gendarme, in fact. Is that right? That's right. That was Jerry Maloney. He was a very nice, classified fellow, was Jerry, but he couldn't speak a word of French, and he understood even less. Anyway, off he went to Alsace. Now, Alsace is up in the northeast of France, just where the Alsatians come from. The people and the dogs from there are both called Alsatians, like. Now, Jerry was a typical Cork man at the time. As far as he was concerned, the law applied 100% to everyone except himself. And he had a run-in with the law in France, because there, the law really do apply to everyone. We had fierce trouble with a French policeman, a gendarme, or as you saw it, a gendarme they call him, and he wrote a song about it when he came back. And that's the perfect introduction to the Atlantic Ponder's next item, the Gendarme Song from 1956, written and sung in that year by Jerry Maloney. Come, all ye lads and lassies, hear my story of how I had to brush with foreign law. My song is short, I trust it will not bore ye, and at the end a moral I will draw. We Irish people have this mental flaw. We think the law applies to others, but not us. That's why I had that brush with foreign law, and ended up creating quite a fuss. On a sleepy Sunday morning in rural France, the red man showed on the pedestrian light. With not a car in sight, I took a chance and crossed the road, ignoring that red light. A whistle blew, I recognized the sound and thought, ignore it and 'twill go away. I walked on, not daring to turn around. Again that sounded, I knew that I must stay. I stopped and turned around and looked across the street. When it comes to French, I fear I am a dunce. First in words and then in gestures brisk and neat, a squat gendarme told me come back at once. Struck dumb and seemingly a silly ass, I was embarrassed by the loss of face. Had I only paid attention in French class, I'd not have been so helpless in that case. I crossed back over, the gendarme lectured me. Not a single word could I understand, but the gendarme's gist was clear as clear could be. Crossing when the light was red was downright banned. He waited till the red man turned to green, then marched across the road as my escort, explaining, I think, what the colours mean. I wished I could have made a smart retort. The gendarme, having lectured me once more, made to cross the road while I went on my way. My blood was boiling and I felt so sore. That pompous little man had spoiled my day. But then there came three sounds in quick succession, a screech of brakes, a thud, and then a cry. I almost lost my normal self-possession. The sight I saw brought forth a happy sigh. God's ways are not our ways, this story reveals. My tormentor's legs I saw at a glance beneath a set of heavy-duty wheels belonging to a gleaming ambulance. The ambulance crew performed efficiently, and one to me in perfect English said, the pedestrian light was red, could he not see? It's a miracle this gendarme isn't dead. At this man's words my heart with pleasure filled. The sun and pretty girls came out, oh, life was good. One message this unique event instilled: language helps you understand and be understood. Now all ye lads and lassies, that's my story. Since then I shun that Irish mental flaw, that the law applies to others but not me. It's simpler by far to just obey the law. Fabulous, absolutely fabulous. And now we're going to hear a constantly topical number, so maybe you'd like to tell us a little about it. Well, it is very simple, like. The weather in Ireland is gone to hell altogether since around 1966. So Ginger Murphy wrote a song about it in 1970. Ginger is the wife's first cousin, and he joined the Atlantic Ponders in 1969 after the voice went on poor Derry Maloney. Now, the weather hasn't been getting any better, so the song is as relevant, maybe? The very word. The song is as relevant now as it was in 1970, because June to be often like November, and you can get days in November that to be like June, like, you know what I mean? I do indeed. And who's singing this song for us? The song is being sang by Ginger's young fella, Gussie Murphy. He have a very nice style, so we're hoping to keep the tradition going, like.
Your typical Irish summer is a truly classic bummer. For an average of 3 days, the country basks in sunlit haze. Gone is all the rain and drizzle. White skin turns red and starts to sizzle. Out on the beach to get a tan, our parents, kids, grandpa and gran. Much surplus flesh laid almost bare wobbles along without a care. Envied by the skinny teenies, our curvy girls in small bikinis. On they stride, these bouncy lasses, armed with sun cream and sunglasses. Boys with burgeoning erections look longingly in their direction. But though these lads jump, shout and prance, the girls don't give a single glance. All age groups frolic by the sea. Kids lick ice cream, grown-ups sip tea. It's cakes and ale and apple pie as happy sounds rise to the sky. For those 3 days we live in clover, but on day 4 the skies cloud over. Day 5 brings back the normal weather, cold winds, grey skies, and rain together. Red peeling skin's a souvenir that proves the sun was shining here. The wind now howls, the rain pours down, floods drown the center of the town. Yes, your typical Irish summer is indeed a classic bummer.
My goodness, but that song will strike a chord with so many people. So, what's your final piece, IP? Final piece was wrote by Murty O'Toole, the grandson of Bert Ogden, and 'tis bang up to date, 'cause 'tis about a fella with a mobile phone. It's called The Story of Jim Jones, and 'tis sang by me great-grandson, Spotty Freely.
Oh, listen to the story I tell. Let me say in advance, it ends rather well. But it might have been quite otherwise, so follow me closely, girls and boys. Now this is how our story starts. Jim Jones came home from foreign parts. He went to the woods where he'd gone as a boy, and great was his pleasure and great was his joy. A photo, he cried, with my mobile I'll take, where the trees form a circle down by the lake. The lake brought back memories of one June day when he and the girl had rolled in the hay. Susan Brown, he sighed, oh how well I remember our love that lasted from June to September. A pic with phone camera, I'll send her a copy. I bet it'll make her feel all sad and sloppy. He felt in his pocket in the usual place, and a ghastly pallor came over his face. For what he had there expected to find, he found he had carelessly left behind. Yes, Jim Jones had forgotten his mobile phone. He felt quite miserable and quite alone.
He knew nobody could get in touch. At first that didn't bother him much. But then he swore and felt rather vexed that he couldn't receive or send any text. He fumed at the thought that his mobile phone could be jingling in vain its jolly ringtone. "Good heavens," he cried, "I could fall on my head, and no one would know I was injured or dead. The forest could pile up its leaves on my bones, all because I'd forgotten my mobile phone." And that was the moment he stumbled and fell. When he tried to get up, his leg hurt like hell. He hollered for help, but no one came by. It seemed to poor Jim he could very well die. The sun disappeared, the moon took its place, and Jim felt warm tears run down his pale face. He was giving up hope and preparing for death when he felt on his face some very bad breath. The breath that he smelt came from a large hound that snuffled and barked and circled around. "Nice doggy," Jim cried without much conviction. Between Jim and dogs there'd always been friction. A familiar voice brought the hound to heel, and Jim at the sound felt his five senses reel. 'Twas she to whom he'd been so unkind, Susan Brown, the girl that he'd left behind. "Heavens," she cried, "is that really you?" "Yes, indeed," he replied, "and I'm in a right stew." She examined his leg and said, "It's broken." Truer words, he sighed, have never been spoken. She worked as a nurse, so she knew what to do. She made splints for his leg and retrieved his lost shoe. The ambulance came that she called on her phone and whisked him away to reset his bone. Imagine Jim's face when the very next day Susan Brown and two children came in to say they hoped he felt better and not too sore. She sat by the bed, the boys played on the floor. "You remember," she said, "all those days in the woods when I was your love and you gave me the goods? Although that September you went far away, you'd planted the seed that you see here today." Yeah, the girl Jim had lain with had borne him sweet twins, and now it was time to atone for his sins. DNA would establish paternity, child support he could pay retrospectively. "I've a better idea," cried clever Jim. "Let us wed, then you and I and Tom and Tim will take our places in society and be models of dignified propriety." She cried, "I'm the happiest girl alive. In marriage the boys and you and I will thrive." I thought for money I would have to beg. She dived on the bed and hurt his leg. When calm and Jim's leg had been restored, they calculated what they could afford. A quiet wedding in the hospital chapel, then fruit salad with orange, peach, and apple. And so they wed with happy tears and laughter, but there was consternation 2 weeks after when Jim and his new family went home. They found burglars had stolen his mobile phone. Wonderful, wonderful. Well, sadly, that's all we have time for. My guest today here on Cork Nostalgia Radio was... I don't suppose there's any chance of a pint in a small one, is there? It was I.P. Freely of the Atlantic Ponders. Tune in again next week for another trip down memory lane. Goodbye, but you're bloody mean. Wouldn't you think a man might have a mouth in him at all, eh? Until then, this is Jonathan Umtwit saying goodbye and good listening. Feckin' cheapskates. We'll meet again, we know where, we know when, at 7 by the gasworks wall. In the rain or the sun, we'll have loads of good fun when we meet by the gasworks wall. Well, listeners, I'm sure you were all looking forward to Michael Murphy's program, but Michael, unfortunately, is caught up in traffic, and it's pretty chaotic, I gather, out there on the streets. But don't worry. I'm glad to say that Mr. I.P. Freely left behind some wonderful 78 RPM recordings from the Atlantic Ponders back in the day. Now, these were some of the great songs that they played in the opera house and in music halls throughout Ireland and the United Kingdom. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the romantic sound of the Atlantic Ponders.
I left UCC for Ballyragget. The sun was shining so bright, I felt fantastic. Journeying along the road with me textbooks and microscope, I landed in the village of Ballyragget. Took up my science position in the Ower Square. The people who worked there were all enthusiastic. In the evening I rambled around, had a chat, pint and sing song. But at night I dreamt of inventing fat-free chocolate. Fat-free chocolate, fat-free chocolate. As a child I dreamt of inventing fat-free chocolate. Discovered the formula of fat-free chocolate. News went around the world like a rocket. Calls came from everywhere, even from outer space, all looking for a bar of fat-free chocolate. All poured in to see me in Ballyragget, to thank me for my fat-free chocolate. St. Peter came from above with a message from God, blessing me for inventing fat-free chocolate. Fat-free chocolate, fat-free chocolate. As a child I dreamed of inventing fat-free chocolate. Fat-free chocolate, fat-free chocolate. As a child I dreamed of inventing fat-free chocolate. They built a monument to me in Ballyragget, designed from a bar of my fat-free chocolate. On the grounds of UCC, a building is named after me, and lectures take place there on fat-free chocolate. Now I'm 194 years old. Oh yeah, no one ain't dying anymore. I got friends on the moon, Mars and dusty Neptune, and they're all living on fat-free chocolate. Fat-free chocolate, fat-free chocolate. As a child I dreamed of inventing fat-free chocolate. Fat-free chocolate, fat-free chocolate. As a child I dreamed of inventing fat-free chocolate. One more time to chocolate lovers. Fat-free chocolate, fat-free chocolate. As a child I dreamt of inventing fat-free chocolate. Oh yeah. Have a happy chocolate, yeah. She was born in Cork under the Shannon clock while the bells played hallelujah. She was baptized Mary Harris in the good old North Chapel in the autumn of 1837. She grew up badly with her family, surrounded by sickness and poverty. She saw the poor being robbed by those who were well off, and she never forgot those memories. She sailed away to America, where a family at the height of the famine. They met their father there, who walked on the railway, and they all moved to Toronto, Canada. They settled down in the fur trading town, where Mary became a teacher. She taught all the kids to respect what they did, especially the poor and the sick. She was born underneath the Shannon clock as the bells played hallelujah. She fell in love with a Memphis man by the name of George Jones. They married in Tennessee, had 4 children, the best you could see, but the fever took them all in their sleep. She rambled around from town to town, trying to cope with the loss of a family. She got a job dressmaking for the well-to-do ladies, but the poor on the streets were calling. She was born underneath the Shannon clock as the bells played hallelujah. She joined the Knights of Labour to help get things better for the workers and their families. She took to the streets to protest all their needs, but police locked her up in the nick. She was called Murder Jones for the good work she had done by the miners of America. Roosevelt once said he had a pain in his head over a woman called Murder Jones. She was born underneath the Shannon clock as the bells played hallelujah. She passed away at a good old age, still fighting for the rights of the workers. Her last words she said, "I never will be dead as long as there is injustice." She was born underneath the Shannon clock as the bells played hallelujah. She gave her life for those who could not fight hallelujah. 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 Sitting here, thinking about you, my dear, and all the love you gave to me. I see your face, smiling everywhere, and hear your voice in the haze. Sun always shines on you, my dear. I only wish I could be with you today. Remember those walks on those long summer days, picking blackberries on the way, and those moonlit nights when everything was so quiet. You held me tight all through those nights. Sun always shines on you, my dear. I only wish I could be with you today. Sun always shines on you, my dear. I only wish I could be with you today. It's time to go, to face people I don't know, but I know they feel the same as I do. If I make it today, I'll write another letter, my dear, telling you again how much I love you. Sun always shines on you, my dear. I only wish I could be with you today. Off the Blarney we will go and sit in the green and dream. Off the Blarney we will go and sit by the stream and dream. The Blarney we will go and sit in the castle and dream. Off the Blarney we will go and kiss the magic stone and dream. We will go and sit in the gardens and dream. Of home we will go and dream of Blarney dreams, Blarney dreams.
I can't have you, all my life I've been looking for someone like you. Like the flowers that bloom in the merry, merry month of June. There'll be no bumblebees without the bloom. So what am I to do if I can't have you? My life would be full of emptiness without you. Do 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 do. Like the sun in the sky that brightens up the moon way high. If the sun should disappear, so will the moon. Please tell me what to do if I can't have you. I'm so terribly in love, in love.